The blood rushed to my fingertips the moment my father said it, words so sharp they cut deeper than any blade. "You're not half the man your brother is." At that table, surrounded by the very people I had sacrificed everything for, I realized the truth. Love in my family wasn't unconditional, it was a transaction, and I had been the silent investor no one wanted to acknowledge. My name is Lucas, I'm 28, and for most of my life, I thought my family dynamic was just a little strained sometimes, maybe uneven, but nothing unfixable. I used to tell myself every family had its quirks, every family played favorites in small ways, every family had its unspoken rules. But that illusion shattered last month. What I once brushed off as minor differences now feels like a powder keg that had been waiting for years to blow, and as fate would have it, I might have been the spark that lit it. It all started during one of our Friday dinners, the mandatory tradition my parents enforced religiously. Friday nights were non-negotiable. No matter what plans you had, you showed up. That evening, as soon as I walked through the door, I saw Ryan, my older brother, already planted at the table with a grin plastered across his face. He looked like he had just hit the jackpot, and in a way, he had. Earlier that morning, my parents had surprised him with a down payment for his first condo. "You've earned it, son," Dad had said proudly, retelling the story for the third time that night as though Ryan had personally built the place with his bare hands instead of simply signing paperwork. Everyone laughed and clapped for him, while I quietly swirled my fork in the mashed potatoes, forcing a smile. I told myself I wasn't jealous. I wanted to believe that. But if I'm being honest, the knot in my stomach told a different story. I had been working since I was 17, paying for my own degree, covering my own bills, and even stepping in to help my parents when they were struggling with their mortgage a few years back. I had made sacrifices, real ones, yet, in that moment, none of it mattered. Dinner was almost over when Dad set his fork down with a loud clank. He looked directly at me and said the words that would replay in my mind for weeks, "You're not half the man your brother is." I don't know what exactly snapped inside me. Maybe it was years of swallowing comparisons, maybe it was exhaustion from constantly being overlooked, or maybe it was that I had finally reached my breaking point. Calmly, I pushed my chair back and said, "Then maybe he can start paying your rent." The room fell into suffocating silence. Ryan's grin faltered, Mom's eyes went wide, her voice trembling as she whispered, "Rent? What rent?" My heart pounded, but I didn't flinch. I just sat there, letting the words hang in the air like smoke. For 3 years, I had been covering part of their mortgage. They all knew it, deep down. They just didn't want to acknowledge it, and in one slip of frustration, I had revealed the one truth I never meant to lay bare. Dad's voice broke the silence, controlled but sharp. "Lucas, what exactly do you mean by that?" "Exactly what it sounds like," I replied. "I've been helping keep this house afloat. 3 years of payments, my money." Ryan blinked like I was speaking a foreign language. "Wait, what? Why would you do that?" Mom looked offended, as if I'd accused her of a crime. "We never asked you to," she said quickly. "We would never ask that of you." I almost laughed, because technically, she was right. They hadn't asked, they begged. 3 years ago, when Dad's contracting business lost its biggest client, I got a frantic midnight call. "If we can't make the mortgage this month, we'll lose the house," Mom had said through tears. Without thinking, I stepped in. At first, I told myself it was temporary. 1 month, maybe 3, but 1 month turned into a routine. It became expected, it became invisible. And yet, here I was, being told I wasn't even half the man my brother was. The rest of that night blurred into arguments, defensiveness, and carefully sharpened words meant to wound. Dad insisted I was being inappropriate. Mom claimed I was too sensitive. Ryan called me bitter. And me, I just sat there, finally realizing the truth. No matter what I did, no matter how much I gave, I would never measure up in their eyes. That dinner marked the beginning of the unraveling. In the weeks that followed, the favoritism grew louder. Ryan was suddenly seated at the head of the table during dinners, as if he were already being crowned the new patriarch. Dad praised his every move, his promotions, his new car, his responsibility. Meanwhile, my contributions were ignored, erased, even mocked. The breaking point came one Saturday afternoon. Dad asked me to stop by, claiming it was important. When I arrived, Ryan was already there, smug as ever. Mom sat stiffly on the couch, her hands folded like she was bracing for impact. Dad cleared his throat. "Your brother has an opportunity to expand his condo. It's a great investment. We thought maybe you could help with the down payment." I laughed. I couldn't help it. "You're asking me to fund his second property when I don't even own one myself?" "This is about family," Dad shot back. "You're single, you make good money, it's time to step up again." And that was it. Something inside me hardened. I told them I was done. I wasn't their safety net anymore. If Ryan was the golden child, then let him carry the weight. I walked out, their voices trailing behind me, but I didn't look back. For the first time in years, I stopped sending money. I canceled the automatic transfers. I redirected everything into my own account, and when the silence of my apartment swallowed me that night, I stared at years' worth of bank statements, proof of every dollar I had sacrificed. My family thought they could erase me, but those numbers told a different story. The weeks that followed were brutal. My parents alternated between guilt trips and threats. Ryan dismissed me like I was being dramatic, and then came the final betrayal. A mutual friend sent me a photo of my parents' house with a banner, "Congratulations, Ryan." They had officially put his name on the deed. My contributions, tens of thousands of dollars, meant nothing. That night, I made a decision. I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to beg. I was going to let the truth speak louder than their lies. I gathered every bank statement, every transfer receipt, every note. I built a financial report, clean and professional, charts, graphs, totals. By the time I was done, I had a polished document proving beyond a doubt who had really kept that house standing. And then fate handed me the perfect opportunity, a family appreciation dinner, a celebration in Ryan's honor, complete with a slideshow presentation about how he had preserved the family home. The night of the dinner, I showed up calm, collected, and sharper than I'd ever felt. I waited through the meal, through the laughter, through Dad's proud speech. Then the slideshow began, nostalgic photos, childhood memories, and finally, the last slide. "Thank you, Ryan, for preserving our family home." Applause filled the room. Ryan stood, grinning, basking in the glory. That's when I stood, too. My voice was steady. "If I could have a moment." Dad frowned. "Lucas, this isn't the time." "It'll just take a minute," I interrupted. "Since we're talking about preserving the house, I think it's time everyone saw what really kept it standing." I walked to the projector, plugged in my flash drive, and clicked. The screen lit up with my title slide, "Financial Contributions to the Family Home, 2019 to 2023. The room fell silent. I clicked again. Transfers, dates, amounts, all laid out in neat columns. Month after month of invisible sacrifices. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Relatives leaned forward, whispering. "For 3 years," I explained, "I had been quietly covering the mortgage, nearly $70,000 in total. So if we're applauding tonight," I said, my voice calm but unshakable, "let's at least be honest about who really preserved this house." When I finished, the silence was deafening. Dad's face was pale with fury. Mom's hands trembled. Ryan stared at the floor, and me, for the first time in my life, I didn't feel like the invisible son. I felt seen. If this story resonated with you, if you've ever felt overlooked, undervalued, or erased by the very people who should have cherished you, don't stay silent. Share your story in the comments, subscribe for more, and remember, your worth is not defined by those who refuse to see it.